We're live. We didn't even play the song. We didn't. We're late anyways. We're a little behind. Everybody, we're joined here with Coach Jeff Matczak, nine-time team state champion. We may have to fire back up here for a second just because my camera's acting up. But we're here. We're going to talk about all nine, folks. We're going to breeze through a couple. Coach, appreciate you joining us.
It's great.
It's awesome.
Nothing going on.
I know nothing, especially.
Practice.
So tell me, is it just as stressful once the season ends? Because you missed all year of other stuff.
2 weeks of postseason breakdown. Banquets Wednesday.
Yeah.
Got to do that a little early with the McDaniel family. Heading to Honolulu for a month.
Whoa.
Yeah, they're going a month on the 20th. And they said, go ahead, do it without us.
Yeah.
Right. I know what that means. So I was never going to do it without Steve and Ann.
Yeah.
Chris is going to in the family. So I said, we'll do it the week after the season.
Yeah.
So we're pumping out this book right now this weekend, and
Yeah.
all the awards are coming in. We'll be ready to go.
Good.
That's what the postseason is about. You get out of your routine. Every coach would probably say the same thing. Oh, people say, oh God, you probably got a lot of time on your hands. No, you don't. When you're in the season, and as a parent, probably you can relate to this too. It's get up, go to school Monday morning, practice after school, practice, dual, practice, tournament, Sunday, rest, do the family thing. Monday, rinse and repeat.
Yep.
For 14 weeks.
Yep.
And then that's a routine. So that's easy.
Mm-hmm.
And you have other things around the holidays, but when the season ends, then all the crap that you didn't do, it might be taxes, it might be this, it might be that, then it hits you.
Yeah.
And you get back in, okay, now I've got to fill this time with other stuff. I let some things slide, and you've got to wrap your season up. So it's busy for a while, and every coach would feel the same way, I bet.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think of the soccer season that we go through. I mean, every day's, even as a parent, every day's pre-planning. You're pre-planning either for that Thursday or for that Saturday coming up or whatever it is, making sure that they're ready. And I know I'm a big fan of the schedule that you guys have, and you guys are really proactive about letting us know what's going on. If something was missed in school, now we're super smooth on the camera. This is great. I love that. But you guys do a really good job with it. And a lot of the coaches out there do, but we deal with you guys. And so it's nice to know not only that we're going through it, but I mean, you guys are stressing out. I mean, I don't even know what my roster is 5 minutes before we blow the whistle. Right. So I can only imagine what it's like for you. I mean, you don't know what happens to a kid during the day.
Yeah.
9 chances out of 10 possibly you do because you're a gym teacher there, but still you just don't know what's going to happen. So with that, with the stresses that come with it, and we've kind of talked about it once before in the past, but with the stresses that come with it, how do you cope? How do you cope with stresses?
Yeah, probably this year was a lot, and as you age, it hits you a lot. But you also got to draw back on experience, and I have a good support staff. I've always got 1-800 Zach Pearson. I've got, the parents are great. If I have any issue stuff, I can always reach out to mom or dad.
Mm-hmm.
But they have their lives, and they've got things they've got to do. So that's
right.
We try to mitigate, and it's it's just moving through and going through each day. I think that says a lot about routines, having a routine and during the season, but it can also get very monotonous and boring, going through that routine. So when the sun is shining at the state tournament time, even sectionals, we're leaving practice and there's daylight, and that's always things that you always drawn on, that we're getting to the end, there's a new year, and now it's time to crank it up. And so that's some of the things you do to deal with stress.
So we're going to talk about the 9, and we talk about stress, right? So let's talk about some stress maybe coming into the first championship that you guys ever did. The year before, was that a sectional where you got to the sectionals, got beat in the sectionals? How did that go that first year before you won your first state tournament?
Yeah, well, we had been at the state tournament probably 10 times. We had 3 silver trophies.
There we go.
And then we, I think in 2011 and 2012, we lost to a really good Hartford program. We haven't been in Hartford sectional a lot of these years since you've been here, especially, but things get mixed around. So at that time we were with the Hartford sectional they were in. They had really some really good teams.
Yeah.
So you were, we were young, rebuilding, but really good, top 10 ranked team and everything. But we had lost a couple of sectional finals to them. And the second one, we felt we had a really good chance. It was close because we had a good freshman class with Robert, Trey, Bailey, and so on and so forth. Those guys were introduced to our program in 2012, but we missed that year. So then we come back the next year and got most of the team back, and we we made it to the state finals against Wausau West. They were loaded up. They were really, really good. And we lost 27-28.
Wow.
We had Robert on the mat the last duel, and we lost that. We couldn't get the pin, and so it ended right there. And it was, but we knew the next year that we again had all these young kids back that, okay, it was time to bust the door down. We had a T-shirt that said "Done Knocking" on it with a ghost horse slamming through a barn door.
I remember that
house.
Yeah,
and it was like, screw this. It's time to we got 4 silvers, and it's time to get it done. And they got it done, and then it kind of set us up for a little run there.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned that Lee had to get a pin in that duel to get the win. It didn't happen. What were some of the other matches? Were there other matches that happened that didn't happen the way they should have?
There were a few, but Wausau West was really, like, if you would have told me before the duel, okay, this is going to come down to Robert versus this kid. And Robert, let's see, he wrestled that season at 113. No, that was his sophomore year. He
was light.
He lost, let me see. No, that was his freshman year. So he won a state title at 113, but he weighed in, but we moved him up to 120 against a good Wausau West wrestler, but not a state place winner or anything of that nature. So if you would have told me before, hey, Robert Lee versus this guy to win it all in kind of a flip duel.
Yeah.
But you got to tech him or pin him. I would have said, I'll take that bet any day of the week.
Yeah.
And so things went well for us. Again, there were a couple of things where there was a bonus point here or there that we might have lost on, but really nothing in the terms of swing matches going either way.
Sure.
We got some, they got some. And then it came down to that. It just was, we had 4 stalling calls on the other guy in the first 2.5 minutes of the match.
Wow.
And the 5th one never came in the last 3.5 minutes of the match. It never came. And so that was kind of odd as I was watching the semifinal between Arrowhead and Bayport this year. Which
that stalling. Yeah.
And they were, he had some stallings, and, that's a tough spot for the referee to be in. And I totally understood it at the time. I'm like, we're probably not going to get this stalling call. And there was some blood time. It's like, you got to keep chasing. You got to keep pouring the points on.
Yeah.
But, getting a tech fall in that era, different points right now, was a little more difficult. It was one that I thought we would get. I thought we'd get more turns in that match. And that kid, got to hand it to him. I mean, he went out there and did what we have seen our kids do now for the past decade. Go out against really good wrestlers and go the distance and don't give up the extra bonus points. I mean,
and if not
he
win,
did a great job. Yeah, he did a great job, and hats off to them. They were the better team. We weren't ready. We were 1 point short, and so move on.
Yeah. So that was the unfortunate. Then you guys roll into the next year, where this is the first one that you guys win. Was that 2014?
14, yeah.
Okay, 13-14. Rolling into that season, you guys had you had the loss against Wausau West. What was the mantra for the year that year? You kind of set something up, it seems like, every year where your brain is kind of like, this, we're doing it this year. This is one of those things. Did you think that this was the year we're doing it?
Because those kids were extremely driven. There was a lot of talent that had a lot of youth success. They came really close as freshmen and sophomore in the program. They were coming in ready to get it done. So
who were some of those guys?
Well, that was, it was Robert in his junior year now, and Trey in his junior year, because they lost in the sectionals their first year. They lost the state title then their sophomore year. So they're, Bailey Van Handel and, those were kind of the ringleaders in that group. But, we had younger brothers now coming in, like Trent Leon and Ty Lee. So you had their brothers. So we were really getting, our lightweights were really nice. And we had some good upper weights. Will Russum was our heavyweight. We had Nick Agan, and we had a freshman at 220. We had some good young kids in the upper weights. We had some kids come out that were football players that maybe didn't last all along. Those were probably in later years, but it was time. And our senior class was 4 or 5, just really good, solid. Will Russum. We had a kid by the name of Evan Hippis, who was a senior, and Justin Klain was a freshman, real talented. So it was just a real well-rounded lineup.
Those guys just weren't going to be denied, obviously, with those losses, things like that. But when you guys come through that season, was there anything the regular season, was there anything real memorable in that regular season leading up to the postseason for you guys? Like a team you shouldn't have beat kind of thing in the FBA, or no?
Oh boy. I think we went down to a duel called the 5 Seasons Duels in Cedar Rapids, Iowa that year.
Yep.
And we took on 2 nationally ranked teams, Bettendorf and Linn-Mar, Iowa. And they were ranked very high in Iowa, and they were Linn-Mar was in the national rankings. I think both of them were. And so it was a 16-team dual tournament at 2 high schools. They put 8 at each. You wrestled some rounds, and then they put the finals round. We stayed at the high school we were at, and we had Bettendorf in the semis, and we beat them in just an epic. Well, wait a minute. We had Linn-Mar maybe in the first one.
Okay.
I can't remember the order. It didn't matter. They were both really, really good.
Yeah.
And I remember we were starting that duel, and this was kind of the beginning of figuring things out. We had Robert Lee was they had a wrestler named Freddie Stroker who was ranked 1 or 2 in the country. He was ranked really high from Bettendorf, and we started that duel off, and we had an option of, well, let's put Robert at a different weight, and we did it. We looked at it and said, this duel is going to be so close that if Robert can go out and if he beats Freddie Stroker, we're going to beat this team. Mm-hmm. But even if we don't, and he takes a loss, and we saved 3 points from Freddie pinning somebody, because we had good guys after him that could do some things. Yeah. And there was a good guy at the weight class above that didn't guarantee Robert would win. So we kept them down, and he took a close loss, and we ended up winning that duel by 1 point at the end. And it came down to 132 at the end, where we had Trey Leon. So, or maybe he was at 26 at the time.
Wow!
But that was a one way. Then we go on and we wrestle Linn-Mar, and it was the same thing. It was just everything went well for us. So when we won those 2 duels and beat 2 teams from Iowa that were ranked really high, had a national ranking. Mm-hmm. And made some moves along the way, but pretty much stayed straight up. We felt pretty confident going into, once we got to January, that we were going to do well. And I'm sure we did really well at the Cheesehead that year. That gave us a little extra confidence.
Yeah. How many, so going into that type of season too, I want to ask you that. How many Cheesehead champions have you guys had that so far?
I have no idea.
No,
we don't have as many as probably state champions in the last decade. It's hard to get there. Since the tournament has really turned the corner around 2010, 2011. Sure. Was really the last 15 years has really been different than the first 10 years or so. So, we got, we got Zach Lee, and Keaton never won one because he had Gable Stevenson. And, you run into some pretty good guys there. Right.
Right.
And, after Peyton, we had Grayson, and then now, Liam. So going back to 2018, we've had 3, I think. Mm-hmm. And we've had a lot of state champions over that time, and 2-timers and whatnot. So it's hard to do.
So going into that postseason, then after, having some decent wins against those 2 teams, were you kind of like, after those wins, like in my mind as a coach, I'm like, we're ready. Like, this seems like we're ready to roll. Not too much preparation as far as doing odd things or whatever, but when you're getting into the postseason, what's the message to the wrestlers at that point? Just stay focused.
Yeah,
do your thing.
Probably a lot like this year. You even though we lost, Wausau West graduated probably 8 guys.
Yeah,
we graduated 4 or 5, but we knew that it was our time to take it. So you don't want to overemphasize, like, what we did the year before was right. Yeah. So we're just gonna move on the next year with all these kids being a little older, and if everybody gets marginally better, we're going to be in good shape.
Okay. So when you guys get into the state championship, the state run, we'll just call the state weekend, who are some of the teams that you guys wound up facing
That first one?
That first one, yeah.
Well, I don't even remember, but I know the sectionals, was something we breezed through pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I don't even, remember the state tournament. We've wrestled Holman and Hudson and Arrowhead. Well, not really Arrowhead too much. I mean, they were there, but a lot of times they were on the other side. But
yeah,
we've Menominee Falls and just so many teams over the years. But I know the first 2 rounds, just like the year before, even in 13 we lost. We kind of rolled through the first quarter and semi, and so wasn't seeded back then. They didn't start seeding until probably 2018.
Wow.
I'm gonna take a guess when we weren't winning it, but those were blind draws. You knew the sectional placements back in May before you got out of school. They came out. The first thing we would look at is, where first, what sectionals are we in?
Yeah.
For our individuals and for qualifying, but then a state matrix came out where you knew, the bracket came out where you knew which sectional your champion would go against that team state. So the path was pretty clear, and we had Bayport in the finals, and they had to beat a pretty good Stoughton team, I think, on the other side. And so, it was a good duel, but we got a little lead about halfway through and won some big matches. So it was good.
And we miss you guys, Stoughton. We'd like to see you guys swing back around. That'd be fun. But anyways, when you guys get into that final, this is the first championship. Was that final against Bayport pretty, I guess, smooth? I don't want to say easy, but smooth.
No, it was. You look at everything and how to get 8 wins, and we had a sophomore named Justin Klain. He won a big match. We bumped him up from 152 to 160. Won a big match against a really good kid. That was really a key one. We had just lost a 145-pound match where they might have been favored a little bit. I think the Bayport kid might have been a state placer, and we had a qualifier, but we had him on the ropes, and that was a tight one. And we came back at 52. I don't remember what happened, but at 60, we moved Justin up and got a big, big win. And then at 70, Nick Hagan got a pin. We kind of were starring that match in our pre-meet practice, saying, hey, we win that match. And that's putting a lot of pressure on a kid, but Nick Hagan's that kind of guy. He's a football linebacker kid that was more seasonal in wrestling, but he was a 4-year guy, really tough. And to say, hey, you do that, we're in good shape. And he went out and got a pin. So
nice.
That Bayport team had a lot of talent on. It was really, really, really good.
So that's your first one. That was to say the least, I'm sure you guys were elated, right? I mean, year before it was second. Year before that was second as well, too, wasn't it?
No, because we lost to Hartford in the sectional.
Gotcha. So close one, win this one. What are you guys feeling going into the next year then? We're not satisfied?
Yeah, we're still young. We're still young. We had, like I said, those 4 or 5 seniors. Ian Jokini put a dagger in it at 113. He was a senior. Nick Hagan, Hippis. Colton Jansen was a state runner-up, and our heavyweight. So, there's 5 guys. So you got 9 guys returning, loaded junior varsity.
Yeah.
Really good. Some freshmen coming in, and we were going to get Keaton next year. I didn't know he would project to be a state qualifier, but you were graduating a senior heavyweight, and we had some big kids in the room anyway, and you were going to add Keaton. So we felt we're young enough with over half our lineup back and what we have in the reserves to even have a better team in 2015. And we did.
So when you are talking, and I saw this question out on with Teague and Steve, was there a team you had that won a state championship that didn't have any state champions themselves, individual?
Well, Bayport,
one was okay.
Bayport had Ingold. No, they had Ingold. He's playing running back in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
So he was a state champ at.
No, I mean you guys.
Oh,
your team.
Well, 14. Probably not.
No.
Because we had Robert. Well, Robert actually in 20. Robert was in 15. He was in 16. Was Ty.
Coach has the Bible along.
17 you guys are wondering. Keaton, and Okay. 21, 22, 23. No, every team had at least
every
one.
team had one.
Yeah.
Okay. So that answers that for us anyways. So that second year still got young guys.
Yeah.
Got the experience of winning it. like that feeling. Did you notice a change in the room at all with those guys? You remember that? You remember? No.
No, I don't. I remember it.
Yeah.
It just
no change in them.
Business as usual. Like these guys were hungry. Some of the kids didn't. Kids that don't achieve their individual goals, even though they win a state title, are, their individual goals are always going to be more important, and they should be. Like that is why you got into this sport in the first place. You didn't get in this sport to get moved around and bumped around in the lineup to be the good of the whole. It was always about doing something for yourself. That's what wrestling is. And it's so those kids were grinding away. Trey Leon was always motivated. You were going to get more out of him year after year after year. And there were a lot of kids like that. And they came back. They were hungry.
What were, again, same thing this next year? Were there any real challenges FVA wise, conference wise, that kind of gave you guys some fits that you?
Well, this year,
nope, the second championship.
Well, Hortonville came into the conference then, I believe, in like 2015 that year.
Okay.
And so then the next year in 2016 is when they had a really good team.
Okay.
And we had a real good duel with them.
Okay. So that was the year after. We'll talk about that in a second. But the second championship season, when they first came, that was when they first came in, right?
Yeah.
They were still fresh to the FBA.
Young. They were young, but we were starting to get older. We were juniors, seniors, and they were young, but they came in and in a dual meet, we beat them pretty handily, but then the next year it got interesting for that year.
So were there any, because I know you guys, we've done Christmas tournament. You guys used to do but you guys would do an Iowa tournament or so.
Yep. We went to
same one
during
the next
that
year.
time. And like, after we got done with we went to that tournament out in, actually in 2015 with what was at the time was our best team ever. Coming back after that state title, we went back to those Cedar Rapids duels. And we got beat. We got beat in the semifinals. Wow. And then we beat a really good team in what would be the third place match. But we got beat in the semis there, and that woke us up, really big. It was a wake up call. Like, we won state last year. We won this tournament last year. Now we're getting beat by Cedar Rapids Prairie High School.
That was the 2014-15 season. Okay.
And I just remember that vividly. And
it's
kind of a weird situation. I'll tell it.
Yeah.
There was so it's a dual tournament. And like, we went to the Manly duels this year in East Troy, and they only had 15 teams. So I asked to get another team in, and I said, I can fill the weights. I think we filled 13 weights and brought a second team. They went 2-2 and took, they pushed Beaver Dam 39-38. It was a good team. So that was a good team.
Yeah.
And so there was a similar situation back in 2015 where Cedar Rapids Prairie, they entered 2 teams into that 16-team field.
Yeah.
Well, in the first duel, we wrestled their second team, and we won 13 out of 14 matches. And our strongest weight wasn't 113 or 112, whatever the weights were at that time. It wasn't our strongest weight, but we had good kids at every weight. But it wasn't like we had, a state qualifier or place winner there. But we had a kid, he went out and he got beat by the guy on Cedar Rapids Prairie, who was one of 2 guys they had in their room that, they could put out there. But one was on that second team. So he beat us in a really close match. He kind of got away from us a little at the end by a few points. But so then we go and we wrestle the next duel and we win. And then we get to the semifinals in the third round, and we're wrestling the Cedar Rapids first team, the other team.
Yeah.
Well, they took that kid off their second team and put him on their first team, and they beat us again.
Oh my God.
And we lost by, less than 5 points, because they knew they could. They had 2 kids and they were probably pretty equal.
Yeah.
But that kid beat us the first time, then he beat us again. And so, like, I told coach at East Troy, I said, hey, when we bring these 2 teams, they're going to be 2 separate teams. We're not going to bounce a kid back and forth. We had that done to us, and I don't think it's right.
I was going to ask if that was even legal.
It wouldn't be legal in Wisconsin right now. I mean, and you would look at it and go, okay, well, how is it not legal? Well, there's some rule if you dig into the number of competitions you're wrestling.
Yeah.
And it would count for probably 2 varsity tournaments for us if we took a kid and used them on our dual lineup and then in our other team's lineup. Now it would count as 2 varsity events for us. That's how I would read it.
Yeah.
So now, if we have 14 varsity events already lined up, we'd be at 15 by doing that. So that team was a separate team in this tournament on our varsity reserve schedule. That didn't count towards the guys that wrestled on our 15 or 14 varsity events. So yeah, it wouldn't fly here. And but even ethically, whatever.
That's still crazy.
But we needed, that was actually, it was really good though too, because we got beat. We weren't happy about it. And we came back and we wrestled Lynn Mar again, the team we beat the year before, and we really in the 3rd place match, and we did really well. And so then after that, we started going, and that tournament we were kind of pissy about that switch they made. And it's like, well, it was kind of, whatever. But that tournament was starting to lose its, because they were running it at multiple high schools, they were starting to have some issues with how they were going to run it. So we ended up going to the Waverly Shell Rock duels. Down in Waverly, Iowa. And we went there for 3 or 4 years, like probably 17, 18, 19, 20 maybe.
Okay.
And won that. I think we beat Waverly 2 years, and then we lost to them in 19 and 20. And those were good duels. And
I remember the rumors about those and like being here. I was like, I can't wait to get to those duels. And then we stopped going to those duels.
Yeah. Well, then the next year was COVID, so we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they do the duels. I remember Waverly, when we beat them the first 2 years, they were still good.
Yeah.
We were really good, and we beat them, but then they were loading up.
Sure.
So they took it to us in 19 and 20.
Yeah.
But I just, it's works and cycles.
So who were you guys in the finals against in 14-15?
That was
Your
was
second.
Stoughton. So we were in Stoughton 3 years.
3 years in a row.
And it ended up being a 7-year meeting at the state tournament from 15 to 21. We met Stoughton every year.
In the finals.
No.
No. Okay. Not every year in the finals. Okay.
No.
So with that being said, your first year against Stoughton in the finals, how did that go for you?
It was very similar to the Bayport duel the year before.
Okay.
It was, they were good. They were coming.
Yeah.
They pushed Bayport, I think, the year before, but now they're there. And I could there's the names.
Mm-hmm.
And they were really doing well at the individual state tournament during all those years. They had, they always have 5 kids on the podium, a few kids in the finals.
Yeah.
And they would just ride that into the state tournament. So, but that year was an up year for us again. And they were, first year they had been in the finals for a few years. So we were able to kind of manage that, like a lot like the Bayport duel. It was, a 15, 20 point win, but it was, one you had to really watch close.
Sure. So the second year was Stoughton. Third year was also Stoughton. So let's kind of talk about 2015, 16 going into the regular season. Were there any snafus?
No, but we had dumped Robert and Trey and Bailey's class at 2015. They were gone now. So that was one that got us a silver, a gold, and a gold. And that was a really good nucleus of kids.
Yep.
Tanner Van den Avel. And they were gone. So now this was going to be a little more challenging. But again, our youth, our youth group and our middle school was really strong at that time. So we were getting kids to come in. In 2015, 16, that was when John Diener and Brandon Mix and kids like that came in, and they were your 6 and 13 pounders and state qualifier type kids. And and so we were able to go through that against Stoughton.
And you mentioned, obviously losing some of the older guys. Hortonville was a force to be reckoned with that year, things like that.
Yeah.
Were there any concerns going back into the state tournament? Once you guys, got conference done, all that stuff out of the way, were there any concerns of any of those teams going through that before you got to the finals?
The state tournament was not seeded, and the number 1 team in the state was Hudson.
Oh,
okay. I don't know what we were ranked, probably 2 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
But Hudson was loaded up. So we watched them real close at regionals and got to see them at the state tournament. But they were loaded because in 2015, we beat them in the semifinals, and they were young.
Yeah.
And then we lost more than them. And they came back in 2016 and were ranked number 1 for most of the season. And we had them in the first round at state. Like it was probably number 1 and number 2 ranked, but that's the way the matrix went back then.
Okay.
So we had them right off the bat. And in that year, we only beat Hortonville by about 5 points in the duel in December. We beat them under the mat lamp at Hortonville. It was the first time we ever went there because the first year they came to us, but now in their second year, they had Eric Barnett was a freshman. They had his older brother, Jacob Barnett, and Lickfist and Cliver and all these guys. They had Jacob Stein was a good heavyweight. They had a real nice lineup, and we beat them. And the big one there was Keaton pinning Stein. It was a sophomore Keaton pinning the senior Jacob Stein. Got him in a headlock. Worry about the shadows of the mat lamp. The ref got in a good spot, called the pin, and then that kind of put us in control. And we ended up, navigating and winning a few more matches to close that one out. But that was the key match there because Keaton had some losses to him. I think even that season later at Pulaski, he might have lost to him.
Okay.
But we had Hortonville, and Hortonville qualified for state. So after we, the conference tournament that year in 2016 was and we won Pulaski, but Hortonville was right behind us there. And then we have the conference tournament the week after, and we ended up opening that one up a little bit. We beat them by a decent margin where it was a good day for us. But I remember talking to Chris Genrich after. Now we're going to regionals. Now they're going west to Rapids. Nina was going west to Rapids, and we were staying in the Valley, Green Bay. I don't know who we were wrestling, but we were going separate ways. And in Rapids, they had a pretty good team that year. Like in 2012, they won that state title, but then they made a little resurgence in 2016. And so me and Genrich were talking after, and he was talking about where guys are going to be and this and that. And then all good luck. And then they won regionals, and then they won their team sectional. And so they qualified for state that year. And so we had 2 FEA teams at the state tournament. Unfortunately, they lost to Sauk Prairie in the first round, which I thought they'd win. Sauk Prairie was really good, though. They were good. But I thought Hortonville, just by how tight we were, would have a chance to win that one. And then we had Hudson, and we won that duel. That duel against Hudson, again, it came down to Keaton Cleaver.
Man,
he got beat when he was a freshman. So the year before in the semis, we wrestled Hudson in the semis, and Keaton he got pounded pretty good. By a junior heavyweight, strong kid. I wish I knew his name. Probably find it in this book, but it's there. But he lost, I think, 11-3. And it was probably worse than that. We got majored, and then we ended up winning that duel. So now the next year, that kid is back, Keaton's back, and we're looking at that duel going, this is a 7-7. It's a 6-7 going into, and there's that match. Like that's the match they're probably favored in. And it's a match we need. We started at 160. We got beat. We went up. They had hammers, Sawyer Massey, Jacob Anderson. We kind of got through those dudes. They were really, really tough. And then we got to Keaton's match at heavyweight, and we went into overtime, and we hit a slide by on the edge of the mat right in front of our bench, dragged them down, got the 2. I think it was over. Maybe it was the end of the third, but pulled that one out and, overcame a real mismatch from 365 days before. But you're talking about a freshman versus a junior. Okay, that can look bad. But now, the development that a freshman can make from freshman to sophomore year opposed to that junior to senior year, I think we could make some gains now, enough to make up 11 points and the strength disadvantage that we had that first year. I don't know. And because it was still apparent in that match, a man wrestling a boy finding his way. And, but it was enough. And he kept it close and stayed off the mat on the feet. And then he got the takedown. So that propelled us into the semis where we were able to get our third one. But that was an unbelievable duel. Very,
that semifinal duel was closer than the final duel.
By far. Yeah, it was. Well, no, because Stoughton was now in year 2 in 2016. So that was a tight one too.
Okay.
It was tight. I think we had McQuantico in the semis, and that was one that we were able to put some distance on them early and keep it. And then Stoughton in the finals was a pretty good duel. That 2016 and 2017 Stoughton duels, they were now really coming into their own, and those were good.
Yeah. So when you guys got out of that, was that a breath of relief kind of season? because things seem so close.
I think we felt like we not stole one, but it's like we bridged the gap because you're so close, and then you win it, and then you win it, then you graduate those kids that were sophomores and so close and came through, and now you got to kind of rebuild. And again, Hudson was loaded up, a lot of good seniors, and to be able to get that one in 2016, you're saying now, okay, this isn't done yet, and we're kind of young again.
So when I always have a thought in mind whenever I go, especially start a new season, coaching, things like that. But when you come into the room, when you're starting out a season, now you won 3 in a row, right? You won 3 in a row. You're coming into that season of number 4. Are you setting any expectations coming out with the guys? Because you don't have a young team. I mean, you might have some young guys that came up, but you have a pretty solid team now that's been around for a minute, right? You got sophomores, juniors, maybe a couple seniors mixed in there with it. If not, maybe a couple more. But are those guys still able to set the tone with some of the younger guys, no matter what, where it's not coaches obviously have to set the bar, but a lot of times a captain will set the tone. A captain is, obviously the guy that's going to be able to let guys know, hey, don't be doing this, don't be doing that. You guys have any kind of, I don't know, just kind of craziness off in the wrestling room where you're like, guys, we need to zip this. We need to rein this in. Right now we're in a direction where we're not going to win something kind of thing. You ever run into that at all?
Yeah, you do, but it's usually last a day or two. It's not anything big. You find those things early. And we had it, 2016, 2017 now. Keaton's going to be a senior, and he's a big guy. And he won a state title in 2016 with that epic throw at the end of that Blaze Beltran match. So he's feeling good. And so he's the leader of your team. And so, those 2016 and 17 teams, there wasn't a dominant class. There wasn't like, we're, being led by this class. We had, 5 freshmen, 5 sophomores, 5 juniors, 5 seniors. It was just very balanced. So you needed, and we really leaned on those senior classes for sure, because they had won a title the year before and they had to show the freshmen the way. So those were really balanced classes that, made it easy to sustain at that time.
Sure. When you guys got into the run of the 4th year, were there any changes? Were there any school changes? Were you guys sent to a different, sectional? Any kind of weird curveballs thrown at you guys that season at all?
The WIA, pushes the boundaries different ways every season. A lot of that has to do with, first of all, forever it's been the top enrollments of 128 schools is in Division I.
Yeah.
So, if we've got Shawano up in this area or Port Washington over on the east side of the state, if they were kind of they were schools that might be D1 one year, might be D2 another year. They were on that bubble of enrollment where from one year to the next, if they fluctuated a few students, they could get bumped up or down. So, and that happens all over the state. So, if enrollment stayed stable for a 10-year period, we probably wouldn't change those lines. We'd have the same 8 teams in our regionals. We'd feed against the same 8 teams in sectionals.
Yeah.
And D2 and D3. The other thing that affects it is co-ops. If you take 2 Division II schools and they co-op and they make a Division I enrollment now, and they make a team. So, Mount Horeb, Barneveld. Well, cripe, I remember Mount Horeb back in the day. They were not a Division I school,
right?
They're small, but they co-opt. So now they're Division I, and so now that team's got to fit in one of the 128 D1 sectionals. So now you're bumping down the smallest team, the Shawano, the Port Washington, those type of schools. Pewaukee, I know, is bounced back and forth. If you're around 850, 800, you're on the bubble every year. So that kind of changes it. So now what happens is we might be regional grouped with FVA teams, and we might go to Green Bay, or we may go down to the West Bend, Beaver Dam area. And in this case, this year, our FVA teams got pushed over to the Wisconsin Valley with Rapids. And so it's, Luxembourg coming in this year was a big, Luxembourg was in D1 up in the Green Bay area. So now what do you do? How do you push this around? And that probably had something to do with it. So people get hung up over all those decisions. I really don't think. And so, to answer the question, long story, we got shifted around all the time.
Did you? Okay.
I think the only divisions that don't get, around the La Crosse area, there's probably because there's not as many Division I schools in that lower southwestern part of the state. Like they're either going here or they're going there. Where we at Kaukauna, our regional, we've done I've seen like 10 different matchups of regionals, and then this regional going to this section. We've been in the regional with Green Bay schools before, De Pere and Pulaski.
Yeah.
We've been in regionals with our FEA. We've seen it all. Then how you get matched up with other regionals. So there's a high population on the east part of the state, so there's going to be more fluctuating going on.
Sure. So 17, 18 is the year 4, right? That's titled number 4. 17, 18.
17 was our 4th because we won it in 14.
16,
15,
17 or
16.
17,
16,
18?
17 was number 4.
Okay.
Keaton senior,
Keaton's-
junior year.
Okay, so that was number 4. And obviously talking about that a little bit, wasn't really nothing majorly changed, right? I mean, as far as where you guys are put or teams that are around.
No.
So we'll kind of go to that one a little bit, but more towards the finals. Who'd you guys see in the finals?
Stoughton. It was Stoughton.
I know we said it, but I still want to ask.
Yep.
Okay. So we got Stoughton.
That was tight.
What was the score on that one?
That was tight. I don't remember, but it was probably.
Did it make you uncomfortable?
It was one match. Absolutely. It was a one match thing. It was down to the last 3 matches, and you had to win 2 out of 3 of them.
Wow.
And we made some switches. I get mixed up between the switches we made in 16 and the switches we made in 17 at the end of the duel. But
you don't have to elaborate.
One year we made a great switch, and I don't know if Dan and Bob, Dan Spildy and Bob Empey were sitting right here in this room, and we could go back and look at it. Like, I'm betting they would say we didn't see that one coming. Like, just by the way it worked out at the end, how we took a state qualifier out of our lineup and put in a JV, and then bumped 2 qualifiers up. Which just worked better at the time, and we're able to manage at 119 or 20, whatever that weight was. We're able to mitigate some bonus points and then win the next 2, and that was the best way to do it.
Did you have Moneyball guy with you already, Zach?
No. Oh yeah, 2015.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay.
Zach will tell you. He was just telling me the other days, like, his first years, I didn't do anything, and it's like, well, of course, like. We didn't know that you were a savant, but he did have to learn. Like when he came from Indiana, he had to learn. Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's different.
It took him a little while to kind of figure out, the culture. I mean, he came from a state where there's no divisions.
Yeah,
and in Indy, man, we always say that's in Indy. Anytime there's something funny, we're like, well, that's the way they do it in Indy.
Yeah,
and
it sounds Indiana.
It's different. Wrestling's wrestling, and good teams are good teams, but.
Yeah.
They have that semi-state tournament down there. They have like 4 semi-states, and then their state tournament is so cutthroat.
Yeah.
Like it is.
Yeah.
You get 1 match and you're done. And if you lose your second match, you're done. And it is like, I'd
love to see one just division in the state. Obviously it's not going to happen here, but it'd be interesting to see. We just don't have we're more rural than what Indiana is really. But so now we're going to go into the disappointing season here. Okay. The one that burned, obviously. What were there any conference issues? Were there any season issues, injuries, things like that added up to that one? No, nothing odd.
Rapid or Stoughton was coming into their own.
Yep.
Like they had Dows, they had Empies, they had Spildies.
Yeah.
They had the AD's kid. They had he was a senior with Keaton. They had, they had some kid, Whitehead came in from Milton.
Yep.
They had Lewis.
There's that T word, the transfer word.
Well, it's almost necessary now, right? If
you
go right down the line.
Yep.
And no one says it if you go to a school that's not winning.
Right.
Who cares? So then who cares? That doesn't count.
Right.
But there's some things that are going to hit people square in the face, and it'll have nothing to do with Kaukauna in the next few years. But at least you'll get off our case for a while. The whole thing just came together for Stoughton, and we beat McQuanago in the quarters.
Yeah.
That's a team to pay attention to for 2019 now.
Okay.
But we beat them, and it was a decent duel. And then we had Stoughton in the semis, and I think it was seeded. And I think we were seeded 2, and they were seeded like 6 or like
wow.
Or maybe it was might have been a 4 and 3. Maybe it was a 1 and 4. I don't know, but they it was a good duel. We know it was going to be tight. They had the upper weights now. We had the upper weights when we beat them 3 years in a row. We had Keaton, we had Mason Van Asten, John Heilman.
Yeah.
We had John Heilman, Brant Sanderfoot that came out. You know, they wrestled as freshmen and then they quit their sophomore year and then they came out their junior year and senior year and really helped us out. But those kids, you know, that's where we kind of own the upper weights. Now they had, you know, they had MP and they had a good 220 pounder. They had a good 195 pounder. So they kind of got us there. And obviously Tyler Dow. So, and then coming back around. So that was a great duel. Came down to the last match. We lost. It was a 2-point match at the end.
Man.
And we lost that one and they went on and won the state title and probably beat the number 1 seed. And at that, I think it was Holman that year.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the thing is
great duel.
A lot of these teams, even now that are either in the top seeds or whatever the tournament. I mean, there's history with those teams as well. Not just us. I mean, all those teams have been making their way. There's only been a couple new ones that have popped through here and there, but all those teams have really good history. So when you guys, what is the message going into the room the year after the loss?
You know, we weren't going to be necessarily, we lost some guys. So we weren't going to be necessarily a better team. We were still young. Stoughton was still, I mean, they were pretty healthy with what they had, but we always thought we could beat them.
Who was on the team that next year after the year of the loss? So that was what, 1920?
2018. We were looking at probably Jaden Verhagen was a sophomore.
Okay. State qualifier.
He was a state qualifier, and you know all those guys. Logan Stumpf, Mason Hampshire was a junior. Titus Hammond was a freshman. Diener would have been a junior.
Diener was still.
Brandon Mitch was a junior.
Okay.
Actually, they were juniors in 20. No, I'm sorry. Let's take that back. In 2019, now that's Jaden's junior year, so he was in the state finals against Nicolar. But you know Logan and. You know, Johnny Diener was still there. It was his senior year, and Brandon Mitch, and so we still had a pretty good team, but we were young. We were young in the upper weights, and they had it. And that year they clocked us 19 and 20. They clocked us, and some of that's like we could have made it closer and lost 38 to 22, you know, something like that. Straight up. But we couldn't have won the duel. So we had to do some things early and often. And then it got to be 40 something to, 18 or 19, something like that. Like those scores were bad in 19 and 20. But I've beaten teams 40 to 20, 40 to 19, and been scared out of my ass. That I'm, going into the duel. So it wasn't like it was. There was a path for us, but when you lose an overtime match, a 1-point match, and then a 2-point match, because you made a couple of moves, but you had to win those 3. And if you didn't, you weren't going to win them. Things start to snowball on you a little bit, but kids understood it. They went out and wrestled hard. Stoughton was just better at that time.
Yeah. So it wasn't until 2021. Was that COVID?
It was the COVID year.
That was when you brought back the next state championship win. But that was at home, right? That was just a weird year.
And that team could have wrestled anybody anywhere.
Yeah.
And they would have been the best team. Like we took in that super sectional that year, which was 28 teams. So you're taking 2 sectionals, not 2 16-team sectionals, but they took it was 28 teams. And we put us all in one gym, and the top 2 qualifiers went to state. And we're like, God, how many state qualifiers are you going to finish top 2 in a 28-team tournament where, people had to qualify down into a 16-man bracket. And we took 9 that year. And it was like, we just had a hell of a day in Hartford. And so that team, was really, that was a good year to get it going again, because it was, there were some good seniors. They felt the pain to Stoughton the year before, and we ended up wrestling Stoughton in our gym, and it was a pretty good duel. But I'm pretty sure if we wrestled that duel over and over again, we would have won that duel.
That was Jager beat Nicolar in our gym on that one.
Because he beat him the week before. And
is that year? What was it? We were calling Nicolar's record like something in Jager, because he only lost to Jager.
Yeah, and it was just a good matchup. Like
it was fun to watch.
He beat his freshman year, he beat Jaden in the state finals. His sophomore year, he beat Mason Kamstra in the state finals.
Yep.
You know, got him in a headlock.
Yeah.
It was illegal, by the way. Well, it didn't matter. I mean,
Right.
I'm just saying, like, the pin happened where his hands were
Yep.
locked without an arm.
Yep.
So anyway, but the score was out of reach. And then his junior year, you know, Jager, it was 3 years in a row of wrestling our kids against him. And Jager was a senior and he was a junior. And I think, you know, during the COVID year, things changed a little bit, especially down there. And also, you know, he was either going to have to wrestle Grayson at 26 or Jager at 32. And I don't know, like, what the thinking was there. But, you know, probably wrestled up a little bit of a weight there during COVID. It was just a different time. And Jager, it was great matches both times. Really good matches. They were close right to the end.
I mean, as a coach, I'm probably thinking Grayson could beat Jager in the room, right? If I'm a guy who's not in your room, I'm thinking, yeah, Grayson probably beats Jager. I'd rather have him wrestle Jager and put him against Grayson.
It depends which year, you know, that was, it was only Grayson's sophomore year. So he was going from 106 to 126, but did he take a jump? And if you look at, you know, if you look at what Grayson did to Hayden Halter in the state finals that year compared to what Jager did to Hayden Halter the year before, you'd say, I don't want to mess with Grayson Clark.
Right.
Because he majored him 12-0 or something like that. I don't know. But it was where Jager, that match was a nail biter because Hayden Halter was a 2-time state champ. And here we have him in the semis. So Grayson made a huge jump from his freshman to sophomore year and then just kept jumping. So either way, you know, it was a good match. And it came down to that one. And then, you know, when we won that, it really put it out of reach for us because we got a pin and then we got another win. And we put us up by quite a bit.
I think Liam and I were in the gym for that one when we had just moved in 2 years before there or something like that. But either way, so COVID, as much as I hate talking about it, COVID was actually pretty decent because that's when this next run started.
Yeah.
So the next year you got 21, 22.
Yeah.
Who, so you graduated a couple guys. Was that
you graduated we graduated Jager and you graduated Stump was a place winner, Stuyvenberg, Beckish were place winners, Alec Ashour was a place winner, so 5 place winners and then some other guys, but you were still bringing back, you know, Lucas and Brian and Connor and Grayson and, you know, Peyton Lee was a freshman, so he was just kind of plugging a hole up a weight at 45.
Liam just came in.
Judah,
no, he didn't come in yet. No, he wasn't in yet.
Nope. Judah Hammond and Drew Wenzicki were juniors that year now, and they were kind of pluggers when they were sophomores. And you know, Ben Kruger, we got him, and Jordan Luce. They were young, so our upper weights were kind of finding their way. But yeah, that was the year we beat Holman in the finals, and we were kind of rebuilding from about 6-7 really good seniors. So half our team was new, but there was a lot of talent and some good kids coming in.
And we'll talk quickly about just that postseason run. How tough was that postseason run after COVID? Was it weird because the kid? I mean, obviously you guys get in shape, but stuff like that. But kids are just coming off of having to wear masks constantly and kind of out of shape, even though they're wrestling with them on and stuff like that. But was that ever a factor with you guys, with the team? Like, COVID really wrecked us. Some of these kids got really sick. They're just not the same kind of thing.
No.
Did that ever affect any of you guys?
No, not too bad. I think kids were happy, you know, built on the happiness. And there was still, you know, COVID that year. There was still things. You know, I remember over Christmas, I got it. I remember missing practice and I remember it being like, oh my gosh, because it wasn't, you know, just didn't disappear once we got to the 21-22. That next year was the first year we were coming in. And we had to wear masks at the Minnesota Christmas tournament that year. And I remember being at the Christmas tournament, wearing the mask and then coming home. And it was just a couple days later. It just didn't feel real well. So it was still a thing. And we still had some sort of protocol that second year. It wasn't, you know, you still had to,
wasn't just gone.
You had to report. I mean, it was a little different, but it wasn't like it is now.
Sure.
So back then there was still this, when did your symptoms start? We got to go this many days and you got to stay after school, stay out of school. And that could cost you a competition. So we're still dealing with that, by the state level or in the county level. But, the masks were off and, kids were back in school and, we had that summer where it went away a little bit for a while and then it rears its ugly head again. But, you get that nice summer of training and tried to just kind of go back to normal.
Yeah. So I know as far as conference wise, I'm not even I'm not gonna say that things are easy, but I'm pretty sure you guys had things handled conference wise when it came to just the conference tournament, all that stuff, getting out of the season, going to Minnesota Christmas tournament, things like that. How were there any kind of memorable things or things that stuck out in your head from that second season after? So the not the first one of COVID, the second state team run after COVID, was there any kind of like a hurdle you guys had to overcome for that season at all besides the COVID stuff?
No, not really.
Okay.
It was a young team, so we were kind of unproven and
sure.
Like I said, we had about 6 or 7 kids back, but they were really good. Lucas and Grayson and Ryan Winans and Judah and Drew, and so it was good. And then they were surrounded by a lot of good kids that put in a lot of time, and we thought we could make another run at it. I would compare that to last year.
Okay,
when we lost Grayson's class, and then last year we needed a lot of guys to step up. That year was very similar to that.
Okay, was that a Holman final again?
That was Holman.
The second year after COVID.
Yep, because it was Stoughton.
Yep.
And that was the last of 7 years we wrestled Stoughton at the state tournament.
Crazy.
We won 3, and then they won 3 all in the semis against us.
Yeah.
All those 3 were in the semis, and then one more in the final. But I take that back. It was 8 years straight.
Wow.
Because we wrestled them in the semis before we wrestled Holman in 2022, and that was our closest duel.
Okay. And so I'm noticing that's a trend I'm noticing in the last 5 years. That the semis are the closest matches that we have that should be the finals, in a way.
Yeah.
It's like now do I think as far as where how you were talking about how Casco now came up to here, they should have been in our regional section.
It's all matchups too. You can seed the teams based on roster strength, but a lot of times you'll look at a 1 and a 4, and you'd say, well, we'd rather be matched up against the 3, because we just match up better than them. But it's not always how they match up against you. It's you're seeding these teams, everybody against the field. So, you can have some semifinals that are going to be better than the final if the state champion again gets through. But that year Stoughton in the semis was because we had just beaten them the year before, so they had some residual talent from that, but they were coming down to earth.
Yeah.
And that was the big Lucas Peters pin at 120.
Yeah.
It's Chance Suddeth.
Yep, Suddeth. Correct.
It was got him in a near. I mean, they wrestled in the quarterfinals the week before.
Yep.
And Lucas got a couple he beat us in the cheesehead. And he beat us we couldn't finish the takedown, and he got us good. I think he turned us. And so it was okay, maybe majored. I don't know. It was a few points.
Yeah.
But we were in on so many takedowns in the first period, 2 or 3. We're going to finish this. So we did at the state tournament in the quarters and beat them. So now they're 1-1. And now the duel wraps around and it's going to end at 132. You got Nicolar for them at 26, and we're holding on to a slim lead.
Yeah.
And so we got this match that's going to happen at 120.
Yeah.
2 guys that are 1-1, and Lucas. If he would have told me he was going to pin him, I would have said, you're crazy. I mean, go out and win it. And even if, win or lose, we still had a path to winning it, but it iced it.
Yeah.
Got him in your side cradle and pinned him. But that was a good duel.
Fantastic.
So 8 years in a row at Stoughton at the state tournament.
That is crazy. Okay. So now we're rolling into now it's
7. It is 7.
It is 7. It's not 8. That's a lot.
8. No, it's 8. I keep losing my mind. I forget we beat them. So we beat them for 3.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing is every time we beat them we beat them. We met them in the state finals 4 times.
Yep.
And we beat them every time. they met us in the state semis 3 times and they beat us every time.
Yeah.
So now we're coming back and we're wrestling them in the state semis.
Yep.
And I'm like,
here we go.
This isn't the finals. We beat them 4 years in the finals, but when we wrestle them in the semis, we lose.
Yeah.
So we kind of exercise that demon and we beat them in the semis.
Nice. Okay. And then
crazy.
Holman in the finals then, right?
Yeah. And that was good.
So you guys have come through in those, I would say 5-6 years of beating really good teams, and you guys were no slouches yourselves. So coming into now, we'll talk about the third one where Liam comes in, because now I start to remember certain things.
Yep.
I don't remember a lot. There are certain things I remember, and I remember this year specifically because Liam gassed out the weekend before, right? And he was a little upset and wanted something back, and we go into that state tournament with those guys again with Marshfield.
Yep.
And here's the thing is, like, because I've been around sports long enough where I don't question a lot with what you guys do. I don't question a lot with what most coaches do, just in general. We walked into that building wanting a Williewit match back, right?
Mm-hmm.
You knew that. I mean, God, yeah. Well, yeah, of course. And you know, we talked about it and whatever, but I never really said to Liam, like, get ready for that. Get ready for. I said, just get ready for whatever they're going to tell you to do. That's it. Which is just wrestle, right? So we had a great season. It was a great run. And it was one of those things where I think even in my mind, I said, you know, we're really only going to have struggles once we get into the actual tournament itself, right? No problems conference wise. I mean, Hortonville might have been a little close, but it wasn't even that close. Nina was not close. So I wasn't worried about conference. When you get into the semifinal or like into the first sectionals, who did we have that first round? Was that Bayport?
No.
Who was that?
Bayport that year. Yeah, I can't remember.
No. So, but either way, going into it, like, I didn't realize how good these kids were, right? Like, I was like, yeah, they're good. I've seen the kids wrestle individually. I've seen duels, but I wasn't ready for like what type of attitude they were going to have kind of going into these last duels. And a lot of those kids were pumped and hyped up. So that not only says something to them, but what you guys can do as coaches coming down to that, you know, that last week, because that's hard. That's not easy to keep kids focused, you know, as far as what you're trying to accomplish and things that you want. Yeah, I'm sure they're excited. But what do you guys do going into a season like that, going into that postseason tournament, telling kids, like, is it the same thing every year?
Well, that team from Marshfield, like, those guys were, you know, they had a lot of good guys. They had
Coach Cody C.
Yeah, they had been, you know, they've always had good. They beat us in 2002 at state, but
yeah,
you know, they hid in the shadows of Rapids forever.
Yeah,
they're always really good. And so, you know, that team, we Marshfield came up to our middle school duels we have in January for many, many years. They didn't this year, but a lot of these kids going back about 5 years, they were coming up there. So we'd always see them there, and
sure,
they got a good wrestling tradition. And so all those kids was a team that, you know, you were looking at a few years before with Ben Franklin and Muskowski and, you know, Willowet, and they had some good big guys. And so, you know, you're looking at them going, man, they're tough. Like, there's a lot of freshmen and sophomore here in 2021 wrestling on their team. So now we get to 2023 and it starts coming together. And so, yeah, they were definitely a team we knew we had to beat. And I think they were at the state tournament the 2 years before. They were there in 22 and they were in our gym and during COVID in 2021.
Yep.
We just didn't wrestle them. But now, hey, they're there the last 2 years. They're nipping at everybody's toes, and now they've got, you know, a real chance. So that was a good duel. It started off in the upper weights.
Yes.
And right off the bat, you get Jordan Luce wins and Ben Kruger wins. And those were probably ones that Marshfield had to have, probably were favored in a little bit, but we found a way to fall on top.
Yeah.
And win those 2 matches. So that's, you can thank those 2 guys for Liam not wrestling Willowet.
Right.
Because if the duel goes a different way and they, you know, 6 more for them and 6 less for us, now it's a situation where we've got to start going head up on their better guys
Yep.
with our better guys and trying to get those when you're going to win a state title. When you win those now, Liam, you go and do this and ice it for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not the best for fan appeal when you get to the duels, but I think I enjoy watching coaches run those duels and seeing how they think to win a duel. Like you're trying to win the duel.
Yep.
And within there's a ton of good matchups. I think good duel wrestling, like people think, well, it's just a bunch of mismatches and people trying to, not really. I mean, if you see 4 or 5 swing matches in a duel, that's pretty entertaining. And I really like watching somebody who's the underdog get a takedown on a good wrestler. I'm going off topic here, but if you're a duel fan, the 3-point takedown and the 4-point near fall didn't help at all.
Sure.
We have a lot more techs and not necessarily more pins. You probably have less pins because people are running out of opportunities because they're getting to a tech faster in those mismatches. So that hasn't helped, being able to hold a kid under an 8-point was doable. If I got a state place winner going against a 3rd or 4th place sectional kid, he can go out and he can do that. If he's a kid that was in a tough setting, like you can go out and hold this kid to a 6-2 match. Now, everything's a bonus point in those. It's 2 takedowns and now you're getting an escape and then you're cutting them and getting one. So stalling, I don't know. But anyway, I think just looking at that duel, it started good for us. And then we were able to come around and gain control in the middle.
Well, I think Liam wrestled up a weight, right? Because I think it was Brady that wrestled Williwet.
No, Brady wrestled Laskowski. We kept Grayson down on Franklin at 138.
And Brady took Laskowski down a couple times.
He got a takedown, and then Laskowski got mad.
But either way, we saw that, and I was like, "Holy cow!"
Absolutely,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, then Liam wrestles up. We win the duel. We win the championship. And so that starts leading us into the 4, right? Last year, when last year, to me, I didn't have a doubt again, right? Even in state finals, like I didn't think there was a team on the planet other than maybe an Iowa or Pennsylvania that was going to come here and beat us, right? So I was pretty confident either way. Conference, didn't even worry about it. Regional, sectional kind of thing. I knew we were going to make our way out of it. Was it being cocky? I don't know if it was being cocky, but I also understand a lot of the strengths that some of these kids have on your team because some of them have been on dual teams with me as kids growing up, and like watching them progress and get better was all the more enjoyable to watch last year, right? So going into last year, the message is the same. What was the mantra last year? I can't remember what that was.
Well, we had, again, we're replacing a really good senior class from the year before.
Correct.
Drew Judah, just place winner, Brian Wine, state finalist. And so we had a very thin senior class. Petey was the
lone survivor
there. Yeah. He had some, Ramses Aguirre had never been on varsity. So he was stepping in at 145 where Connor had left, and Connor was a blood round guy. That was really in line for the podium. And then you had Cole Tomczyk and Sam Weber were kind of splitting time at 190 and doing a good job. Like there were guys that were just you actually had Cole was at 90 that year, and Tomczyk last year was up at 250. The year before they were splitting time there. But anyway, so you didn't have a ton of seniors. And so I was like, you were a lot more confident than me, because when I looked at Hortonville's team, they had all juniors the year before, like 9 of them. And they were decent, but we were loaded that year. And then they come back last year and they had a couple kids not come out, and they had to, find a heavyweight, which they did. And they had to, navigate injury, sickness, illness. But then we took it to them in January last year. But when the regionals came around, we needed Ramses Aguirre in a wrestleback match to pin somebody to steal that up for us at regionals. Now they were luckily taking 2 teams out of regionals, but that was pretty close. In the regionals, it's going to be a lot more indicative of what a dual meet's going to look like than say a Pulaski invite or a big invitational because of the head-to-heads we're wrestling. So
right,
they were good. And then they pushed Bayport really hard in that sectional semifinal. And then, we beat Bayport. So no, that was I would have considered last year kind of that gap year where we were going to be pushed a little more with young kids. And, Andy coming in and making a run to the state title match at 106 is always nice when you get someone to come in and
for sure
settle that down. And you had Nolan Mickey was there and before he dropped down doing a great job. So that now you've got the depth. You've got two good 106 pounders. I don't really like to move 106 pounders to 13. It's not like moving a 175 pounder to 215.
Right.
But it is. There's a 106 to 113 people. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially for a freshman. So, we had those guys and Jackson made a little run at the end of the year and Lucas was doing his thing and Liam was doing his thing. And, then you had Nehemiah step up, as a sophomore and find himself on the podium. And Brady and Colin were real solid making the state tournament as sophomores. So we found a nucleus of kids in our sophomore class and rode that out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So what was it? Menominee Falls was the finals, right? I think those guys were the last one, weren't they? Last year.
Rapids.
That's right. Yes, that's right. So Menominee Falls was a fun duel. I think we had a lot of fun kind of making noise next to those guys. They had fun with it too. A little intense in some of the matchups, whatnot.
Menominee, not Falls. It was
Menominee, yes, not Menominee Falls. Sorry, guys.
Yep. I mean, over on the west part of the state.
Sorry, Mustangs. Didn't mean to call you a Milwaukee town. Sorry about that. But anyways, so with those guys, that was a fun duel. But then coming into the Rapids, I don't know if I think I was a little kind of up in the air with that because it was like, ooh, Rapids coming back again. This could be fun, right? They had every Tritz on the team still. They had, I'm trying to think of every other family member that's on that team because it's the Tritzes and one other family member. I can't remember the name of them. But what were your thoughts going into that duel?
Last year?
Yes.
Same as this year. It was, I think 10 of their 14 starters was a name from the 90s or early 2000s. You start with the Tritz and so Freeman's and what
Freeman's, that's what it is. Yeah.
And this year we went to the youth duels in Rapids, the Battle by the River, and we do the middle school tournament. Like I think it's the weekend of the JV state regionals. We take our middle school team there on Saturday and wrestle in a big tournament in Rapids. And then on Sunday, we take some 3rd through 5th grade or whatever the age levels are for that over to a dual tournament in Rapids, a big youth weekend in Rapids in mid-January. And so we've been doing that for years. They also come over to our middle school tournament. They came this year and they've been coming for many years in early January, I think the week after the Cheesehead. So we see them in back-to-back weekends for years.
Yeah.
You could see all these kids, you knew the numbers and they got an AWA out there now. And Justin started the Beast Cage out there and it was probably something, you got to get a club in that area and kids are wrestling more in the off season, coming together, bringing in kids from communities is a good thing. So we knew it was going to be tough and our kids just, stepped up to the challenge last year and this year.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, let's talk about this year though, because this year is a little more special, right? So you broke the curse. The 4, you got the 5, right? I wouldn't even call it a curse because it only happened once, but either way, you guys got to the 5. What this season alone, what were there any things that you did different to try to ensure this championship this year? Was there any type of, I know you're slightly superstitious, right? So were there things that you're like, we're going to continue to do this, even though we should stop doing it? It works.
Every team is different. Like I'm superstitious, but I'm not stupid.
Right.
You have to look at your kids and trends in wrestling. And then you try to stay with the trend. I'm not like I'm going with trends of wrestling.
No, right.
I look at the trends of wrestling that are ruining the sport and I stay with the old ones.
Yeah.
And I can identify about 2 of them really quick, but we're not going to get into that. Like there's things that that you can look at that say, hey, stay with the old way because it works. And then you got to look at, changing some things up, and it comes down to the age of your kids. And then it comes down to, the experience, and you always want the culture to be great, but how you get there is going to be different. So I would say this last year compared to the year before, we were young, when Petey was leaving that group, that was, it was about Petey. Let's get these guys, get them together and condition the hell out of them. Because if you're going to win when you're young, you're going to do it in your head and your mind, and you're going to have to, but like this last year, like it was probably a lot less of that. And it was more of individual development, like getting every kid to be at their best. And they end up coming together at the end, but you just want to see everybody take care of yourself, take care of, and that might sound selfish, but it's like, if you're not taking care of yourself and you're relying on somebody else to take care of you, somebody else is going to get, make up all the points on the team. And I'm just going to, be a hole or something. And nobody wants that. I understand that. But if you don't want to be considered someone who's plugging a gap, then you better get your ass to work and become a dude. And
for sure.
And that's what these kids want. They want to pave their way. And so there was a lot of individual development. Our kids go a lot of different places, and I don't try to bring them in. If you want to come in and work out in our gym in our school, I'll be there for you, and we'll lift and we'll do it. But if you're taking off and going fishing, all the time, when guys are in the room training, then we've got a problem. But if you're heading out to this club or you're hitting a tournament here or there, like that's what we want. And so we had a lot of kids going a lot of different ways. And I think, when Stoughton made their run in that 18, 19, and 20, they would say the same thing for their kids. They were going all over the place. You had a dad taking kids to Europe, and you had another, another guy, running this club down here, and you got this going on there. And you have to get, kids have to go where they're coming. We have a lot of clubs in our area. Like back in 2014, when this was starting, I don't know when AWA started in Ashwaubenon, and I know Ben was rolling probably around 2010 down there. Good. And maybe had 2 academies, but now you got 7 of them, and you got Nazar and a number of other ones. So, Eric has started something up, and we got kids going over to him, and that's awesome. Like, why would you not want kids going over and learning from, a multiple time All-American from our area that understands our culture? So
for sure.
It's really healthy. And so we let kids do that. And I probably would have been a little more guarded against. And when you have a young team, you want to bring them together, and, you want to get them to bond and all this stuff. And well, a team that is best friends on a mat that can't wrestle worth a shit, that's not going to get it done.
Very true.
No matter how happy you are and all this stuff. So
for sure,
we're a wrestling team. And so we have to learn to wrestle first, and then we'll be a team in the end. For sure. Like that's going to happen. But that's kind of the direction we went this year.
I think a lot of times I'll ad lib a little bit, but I think a lot of times the amount of success makes someone comfortable, right? I think sometimes a kid can walk around and be like, we're 3-time, 4-time state champs. We got this covered kind of thing. Like, I don't need to worry about nothing. And that's probably in their own head, where maybe it does spread around to some of the other guys or whatever it is. But I think sometimes it's just a level of comfortable ability within that thought. And I think guys can get kind of stuck in that. I don't need to go to practice today. I lifted yesterday. I'm all right today. You have guys that are like Peyton or even Winnikins that are willing to, push guys and tell them, hey, let's go do this. No. Let's not go sit in the woods. You can do that on the weekend. Let's go do this instead for the team. Like you said, because it's a team. As much as wrestling is individual, you still have a good portion with this team. So going into with this year, obviously Petey's gone. You lost Luce. You lost some big guys, right? You got your big guys. You said Nehemiah had stepped in the year before, kind of fill some shoes a little bit, but now he's there. Then you have Winnikins. Zach was doing a lot of work in the off season. I know, Liam was working with him quite a bit. Nehemiah is always working with his dad, getting some tournament time in, going across the country. So you have guys, Andy DiPiazza, he's another one that he doesn't just go to the practice room. He's also wrestling in tournaments, things like that. So you have now, again, Because this is kind of how it was, I think, when you had, like Logan Stump and all those guys, because those guys would travel all over and do those tournaments. Now I think we're kind of back into that. Whereas before you maybe had like Robert and those guys probably, and Leon, those guys probably did a lot of that, right?
They did, but it was program driven too. And, even if you go back to
right
teams in the early 2000s with the Buddies and Vinny, those teams, like 2008 team could match up against any team we've ever put out there.
Sure.
Wausau West was better than Rapids that year. Really good. So, you kind of go through cycles of when you want to organize things and do team camps and whatnot. And then, and then there's just times to cut them loose because you got a group that's going to do it. So,
yeah. So this year obviously was special because it was 5. Talk about the going into the barn, coming off of I guess a lackluster weekend before, guys not exactly being able to finish the way that we thought they would be able to. Still everybody that made it their podiumed, right? So not a huge slump by any means, but just kind of like, oh man, we were really expecting a little bit more out of that kind of thing as a coaching staff. But now you come into the duel, it's a different environment. You can place guys where you need to. What are you guys thinking when you guys come into the barn?
Well, we kind of talked about that during the week, and it wasn't you're not going to win every match that's close. So we lost probably 2 close matches there, and we won a couple. Well, we probably won 3 or 4 close ones, and we lost a couple. So I thought we performed pretty well there, but I think the expectation is, we want to get, more guys in the finals, and we want, this, but like the matchups, they just didn't, it didn't work. And we lost to a couple of kids. We had to come back in the 3rd period and beat previous in the year. 2 of those semis, Andy and Nehemiah, we had wins over guys that we had to win at the last second or late, come back down 3 points and put a guy on his back. So it's not like these were shocking. We were in those matches to win, and crazy things happened in both of them. But so you look at that and you burn the film on it. It's like, this isn't crazy. We could wrestle this match tomorrow and win it. And Monday we could wake up and do it and lose it. So you can't go too much. I was real proud of the 4 out of 4, like this 6 out of 6 podiums. Because you have to go down there and you got to win matches against good kids. And
for sure.
So we, Nikki went in on Thursday night, against Walter, was good. That's just a real good win for him. And then he competed hard in 2 matches he lost. I think, then going back to the sectional tournament, again, we just probably didn't hit our number, but when you're apologizing for taking 6 kids down to state, you got to check your ego at the door. It's, because we got 8 the year before, or 9 the year before that, or whatever. It's
sure.
You look at that, and some years you could have said, oh, you should have probably only got 6 because you got lucky in that match, and this kid was sick from that school, so you probably went to gone. But we never look at that. We never look at things when they're fortunate and they work our way. And we're quick to point out when maybe we lost a couple of tough ones.
Sure.
Pointing out Brady and things like that. He had a bad match, and he was 50-3 or whatever this year, and he had a bad match at a bad time, and so we shine a big spotlight on it. What went wrong there, and it's just, I think it was circumstantial in that case, and so we talked about that, and it's like, but now that being said, it's like, we had a speaker come in, and he came in, and I don't think he came in at all this year, but he does this for a living, and he's really tied into the program, and came in and talked about a couple of things and walked the kids around the room and got them to raise their hands and talk. And we journaled a little bit about that too. Then a couple days later, what he said and what we wanted to learn, before we got on the bus the next day. And so it just kind of got us back in, and it was about, then finishing matches and Drake going into those deep waters and matches and doing your job. And I thought every duel we wrestled great. I think we won just about every match there. And I'm not talking on the scoreboard. I'm wins, losses. It doesn't matter. Like, I could take a good thing out of 14 times 3 is 42 matches. So we did every match, we did great things.
Well, either way, let's talk about the Arrowhead one, because I know the one that I remember the most, at least as far as I wasn't expecting, was Van Schindel, right? Like the win that he got wasn't the type of win I was expecting. He blew it out of the water, right? To me, that was huge. And then not only his, but I think Jack's win was big too, because I think that was the 2 seed from the state tournament, wasn't it? That
no,
Jack had?
Well, that was and that was at 106. He was 2, but
and
he, we get caught up in these seeds and this and that,
but it matters.
He's a 3-time state qualifier, is what he was, and then that's what earned him his seed. So but he hadn't been on the podium yet, and we think, Trenton, to me, I mean, he's a state qualifier to me. He just doesn't have that next to his name in print anywhere, but he is a state qualifier to me. He didn't make it, but when you beat a kid 14-2 and then you tech them, pin them, you're teching them and then you pin them, and then a week later you're not in school because you're not well enough, and then you get on the bus and you come to the tournament without any practice for 3 days, and you're winning by a point with seconds to go, and you're holding onto your stomach in between the whistles, and you give up a reversal at the end. To me, you're a state qualifier, and that kid went on and won the sectional, and he's a good wrestler. But I think Trenton is we had a state qualifier out there going out there against a 3-time state qualifier just because he's older than us. And it was going to be a good match. Now to go out and get a takedown and then to go takedown right to the back, I didn't see that coming.
Right. No, me either. So that we were really excited about that one for him specifically,
and then
right?
Black hold him. It was another mantra we have. And I know people get disappointed about not being able to finish off pins, and it's just something we talk about. It's the black hole. And if there's times, and I think it should be every time, I don't think you can randomly decide to be a pinner in the state dual tournament in any round. It's, that's something that starts from the beginning of the year. And, you just don't let people off their back. If you want to get mat time, you can get some mat time, but you don't belittle an opponent. You don't, and it's easy to pin somebody that doesn't fight very hard, but kids are going to fight hard to get off their back. And sometimes, we don't pay attention to those things. And I think when he got him on his back, you could just tell by his position that he wasn't getting off. And if there's a minute on the clock, that's going to be hard to keep your shoulders up for that long.
Lights out. So what, 126, 132 was 132 was the gas guy, right? That was
Jack's match. And the duel was, that did end the duel, but we figured at that point we had matches coming with Peyton and Collins. So we were in good shape, and they had some hammers on the board too with, DeShadow and
for sure,
and their 150 pounder. So, but we had a good lead there. And, I mean, that Sandoval was not, I mean, he just came back literally. So
he's out since January, right?
Long off. So he's wrestling for his team. And, he was a hero the night before, even though, for somebody that's as good as him, he's not probably feeling real good about going out and having to stall. Like that's not wired in your DNA. So, but he ended up getting his team to the final, and now he's coming out, and he came out like a ball of fire. And Jack, with Jack, it's just extend the match because, you're a little longer, and when you're long and he's got pretty decent strength. So when you're long and you can get somebody tired, it really gets hard.
Well, those hips really worked magic on that guy, because he was gassed after, trying to take 2, 3, 4 shots, just not able to complete anything.
We didn't give up. There were some takedowns he was in on us, and we're on the edge, and we just kept wrestling past the line and past the whistle. Like, don't make the line on the mat and the sound of the whistle make you stop wrestling. You have to wrestle through that. And he did, and got some restarts where, if he would have stopped, that match would have been not going in overtime. And then he rode hard at the end and got that stalling call. You got to be able to put a good ride on.
So we come up into the 40s, 50s here. And I think a lot of those were matches. I think that we, as far as us in the stands, just doing simple math, not Zach math, and just kind of knowing that, I'm pretty sure these are pretty locked, right? But we didn't know what you guys were going to do. We didn't know who, because that's just us walking into the barn, like us as fans were like, we could see this guy wrestle this guy, but I don't know. They could put him against him, right? So as you guys are going through that duel, what were you looking at changes by that point? Up in the 40s and 50s, where you're talking about, Peyton Lee and
well, it was over at that time, and it's getting the senior on the mat. It's getting and then you want your guys on the mat. I mean, you're not gonna empty the bench, but now it's you're managing your bench more than you're managing what's on the mat. So
for sure,
nothing crazy happens. We're the only sport in the history of the world that takes points off of the team score.
Yeah,
we're the only one.
Yeah,
you can take your clothes off in the middle of the field after any other high school game.
Scores the same.
You're going to win the state championship, even if you're only up by 1 in a basketball game. They're going to put handcuffs on you and take you to the county jail.
But you're still going to win.
But your team still wins.
Yeah.
And so we do this stupid thing of, post-match celebrations and taunting and all this stuff, which is bad stuff, but you can't take away points that are earned. I think that's the dumbest thing in the history of sports, taking away points that are earned. It's just foolish. And I guess maybe if we didn't do that, then all hell would break loose.
Yeah.
It doesn't break loose in any other sport. And it's like, no, you're going to be serving some punishment or a fine or whatever if you do something stupid. But why are we taking points away? We actually, it's a 9-point swing. Like if I'm wrestling you in a match and I punch you in the face, okay, I deserve some things for that for sure.
Yeah.
Like a hockey player, well, they don't get punished that much. Basketball player, baseball player, that throws at somebody's head, or
they get thrown out
at each other or whatever. In wrestling, the other team gets 6 points and we get 3 teams deducted off our team, but it's a 9-point swing in a wrestling match. So can you imagine in a football game if somebody throws a punch at somebody, they threw his helmet or whatever,
they just lose yards,
and then you lose, we're going to take 6 points. We're going to take a touchdown away we're going to give you a touchdown and we're going to take a field goal away from us, and we're kicking you out of the game, and now we're going to start the game again. How can you take away points that are earned? But we do that in wrestling.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got that rant out.
So you're not a celebration guy.
Yeah. Well, I just want, we want to be we have to explain these things in sports to people. Wrestling, I don't understand it. Well, yeah.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah. We take points away from teams if they
you're not a celebration guy. You don't like the celebrations. Obviously I'm not about overboard, right? But a guy gets if I'm Van Schindel, I just got that. I'm elated and I'm my arms are up. You're not into that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay.
But you got to watch the celebration police out there in stripes and
correct
people in ties. If you're celebrating too much or you're inciting the crowd.
Ooh.
I'm going to say this, the referees and, Mel has it going now is a lot better than it was in our first state title in 2014.
Sure.
I was talking about Nick Agan. He got up and his dad was in the National Guard and had done some service. And after he got a pin, he looked right up at his dad and he gave him a little salute here. And that was like the 5th match or so, or 6th match, but the referee was grabbing anybody who looked up to the crowd and gave the pump up sign or whatever it was.
Wow.
It's not the ref. It's at the time it was do not do anything, in the crowd or this or that. You just walk like a robot, take your leg bend off, put it down, shake hands, get off the mat as fast as possible, and don't show any human emotion at all. Well, this kid got up and he did the old salute to his dad, and then, he got scolded for it. Now, there weren't any points there, but just the fact that
he was talked to,
it happened in every match, both the Bayport kids, Kaukauna kids, it didn't matter. It was the way it had to be then. And now you have kids, I saw Burlington, really good team, probably in 2018 or 19.
Yep.
Lose a duel at Team State, and they were good. There were a lot of good teams those years. You give a flex one, you get the team points taken off, and they lost by 1 point. And it's just stuff like that I don't know if you want to do something but taking away points earned, I have a problem with that.
I do.
You can't.
I agree.
You can't undo history.
Right.
We made these baskets. I hit a home run.
Yep.
And now I get the home run. And if something bad happens later on, you can't take my RB. If somebody else on my team does something, you're going to take my RBI away from me.
Yeah, because let's say if that guy got a home run, even though he may have gotten busted with steroids, they don't take that home run away.
Yeah. Well, they
don't even reach back.
There's
that far.
only like a couple of points scored in a soccer game on a match, in a good one. It could be
in a good one. Yes.
Nothing.
Yes.
And then something we'd never take a goal away.
Never.
You can't take a goal away.
We would have hooligans everywhere.
We scored the goal.
We would have people. Referees wouldn't be alive. Referees wouldn't be alive. So
I'm talking about. We were talking about going into those last ones.
Yeah.
It's just guys. We want to represent ourselves and get guys matches and go out and do it. Breck Ritchie went out and
Breck
had a good match against, I believe, a state qualifier at one point in his career, and
for sure,
he's inspired by his teammate Liam Crook and Trey Leon going back the tilt pin.
Sure. Yeah.
Get that shoulder down on a tilt, and he was able to do it.
It was awesome.
There's something about that tilt pin. It's like every kid. So you go Trey and Liam, and now they're all freakishly strong.
Yeah.
All of them are freakishly strong for their body weight, like freaky strong. And it's just, they're able to, really belt it tight, but then they probably come up and press that down, and they all have a good bench press, they'll have something real strong, big hands, but yeah. But that was a nice,
Peyton gets a good win.
Yeah. Peyton, we put him up on a young kid, and that kid's going to have success, and he'll be doing bad things to us in the future, I'm sure, and getting revenge. But it was our night. And
57, that was Schmitty, right?
Schmitty was out because Peyton went to 57.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yep. Okay. 65 was Colin.
DeGroot.
DeGroot. He got a good one.
Yeah,
nice.
And he had his big win the night before when his blood round match was against Holman, on the week before.
Yeah.
And that was a really good match. And then, so now he's getting that Holman kid again early in the duel in more of a team crisis situation. And he ended up beating him 4-3.
Yep.
And so Colin really had a good tournament.
Collins had a lot of these guys have really had, to me, surprisingly good seasons. They've had some losses that were like, I didn't see that happening, but they came through really solid, and you could tell that their momentum was building as the season went on. So 65 was Collins, 75 was
it, because we started at 75 with Brady.
Yeah, with Brady. So Brady was a choice to go to 75. 90, who'd you put at 90? Winnikins, and he did well. And then Liam at 215.
Yep.
So I find it interesting, right? So I know Drydrick has wrestled at heavyweight before. Yes. So I know that the theory kind of going in was that they might wrestle him up, but most likely not, because that senior was their heavyweight, right? And they're not. You don't see Randy sitting his senior out, right?
Well, I don't know. I
don't see it. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, we probably would have done something different, but the goal is to win the duel, and the other coach knows his kids, and we know our kids. And I've been yelled at by other coaches going back. Why did you wrestle this kid? And I'm like, I've never, and I can say this 100% truthfully and honestly, I've never questioned any coach for who they put on the mat.
Sure.
I've never questioned who they put. I've never questioned them for forfeiting.
Yeah.
Never questioned, like Joe Buddy got forfeited a lot his senior year. But he also had a lot of coaches put kids out against him, as he understood. But there's no way you want to forfeit. We get to see these kids 50, 55 times a year.
Yeah.
If the kid gets a night off and doesn't have to wrestle and get his hand raised and whatever, it's like, but I'm not going to question any other coach's motive. Like that's not my responsibility. Like, we put out on the mat, we put out, you put out on the mat, you want to put out
is what it is.
You're doing what you have to do. And same thing, it's just, I think we're getting into, it's just not a good thing to do.
No,
when you're questioning what other people do. But Drydrick he's a big, strong sophomore. He's got 2 years. He's going to do a lot of stuff. He improved a lot from last year as a freshman at 190, and then he made a real big jump this year. So he's good.
What was the confidence of putting Liam up against someone at 215?
You talk to people. like if I ask somebody,
I had no issues with it.
if I ask somebody like, how's this going to go per this? And like, because we have Liam in the room every day and we watch him wrestle and then, but if somebody asked me, hey, how do you think of, Connor Mirasola going up to heavyweight? You think that's a good idea? And I'd go, well, he's going to win it. And I don't know if he was the lighter one or not, just Cole or Connor, but like, he weighs 100. Like, yeah, he'll still win it. Like, oh yeah, because I just didn't know. You got that kid from Appleton North. This and then it's like, yeah, but no, he's gonna win it. It's 6 minutes. Not gonna go to his back. I mean, yeah, if you started him on his back and he started the match that way and he had to fight off of it and then start wrestling, that could be bad. And anybody can go to their back for sure. But it's just it's a wrestle match and it's an age. There's an age thing there and strength. Like, Liam can bench press a house and he's really, really strong and everything. And but weight matters. Weight matters
for sure.
When you have 214, 15 pounds weighing on you and you get behind in a match and things get sweaty.
Yeah,
that could have been a difficult situation, but he was tactic. Like the other thing too was just tactics. And let's go back to Colin DeGroot. Like, Colin started just the most tactical adjustments he made at state and just started figuring out that it just can't be the same attack all the time. And I've got to do this. And so Liam did that in the match. He went heel pick as an entryway to the legs. And rather than being outside and moving, he had to hold that big body in place, get to his leg and get in deep so he could finish. So you'd see that a handful of times all year, and state finals hitting a barrel roll, Kelly, when it's not something you see, but it's something we work on, and he was able to hit it.
He tried hitting those tilts twice. I was a little worried on that first one because he was
slow going through
a little bit. So I was waiting for someone to like hip over and start coming over. I was like, don't tilt again.
And but again, he felt it. It's like
he got out of there.
I'm going to stay on here. And, he was told when he went out there because of what Brady and because of what Zach did, getting a pin and then a tech, and it's like,
just need a dub.
3 points. You're taking 3 points away from them. And, if we'd have somebody else, like you just let's go up. Let's have a 6 point advantage here. 3 they don't get, 3 we get. And then let's just start chopping off matches.
So forget about the guys. Let's talk about you throughout the duel. Where's your brain? Is your heart up and down? Is your heart rate? Like how is that? Because I mean, you want 5, right? I don't want to belittle it by like thinking that you don't think about it. I know you think about it. So what is going through your brain process and your, like, did you wear a heart monitor at all? Watch or anything like that kept track of your heart rate?
I lost it this season.
Gotcha. Are you freaking out at any point just because you're here? You're like, I don't want to lose this.
No, not in this one. I mean, Rapids duel last year, you go back to, past ones. There's times where, something would go, but we won every match in that duel. Like I said, we won every match. There wasn't, even Perry Bear against the Shadow, like, and the duel was over. But like, if that match would have happened, it was kind of like we led this whole thing off in the semis with him wrestling that Henderson of Holman, who's really good. And Perry went out and it's 5-3 with 30 seconds left. And we're like, don't do anything crazy and get thrown to your back here, but let's go try to win this. If you win it, like, that's huge. Yeah. And so he took a shot at the end, got taken down, lost. Instead of losing by 2, he lost by 5, but he kept it under a meter. Like, that was a win for me.
Sure.
All the way. Just being in it. I know Holman was happy to win it, but was one they had to win, and Perry hadn't been on a mat for a while.
Yep.
Not as long as Sandoval, but he had been out since for a while, not making it to state. And, so we and then prior to that, he'd been out a little bit too. So you look at all those little battles. We got off to a good start with Brady and Zach, and then very comfortable with Liam and Nehemiah. And then it was turning around to 106, and it was like, okay, we did very well in those first 4. Now it's just a matter of picking a few away.
Right.
And then when that little that little crapper got a pin, then it was like, all right, this is going to be, we're on tonight.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be stopped.
So with that capped off, the dual ends, does your celebration end there? And I'm not talking about the parade. I'm talking about in your head, like personally, right? Like this is, you're the head coach of a team. You've been striving for it. Like what were you thinking once that duel ended? Obviously you got trophies and all that other stuff, but what are you thinking? Finally.
No, I mean,
no.
Just seeing the happiness of the kids, and you got kids like Ethan Granger, Mason Hansen, who was part of, I think Mason, I'm pretty sure he wrestled in every team state tournament. You know, he was a starter at 113 as a freshman.
Yeah.
So I know he wrestled there in 2022, but I believe he wrestled in 2023 and 2024. And one of the 3 duels, like last year he did, for sure. I know he did in the semis, I think. And so, you know, like how many kids can say they were a part of 4 championships and they participated in all 4?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not, Grayson Clark lost in the state semis his freshman year. So that was in 2020. But if a kid like that's on the team, you'd say, yeah, he's a 4-time state champ. Sure. But like, Mason's been in and out of our lineup since his freshman year. He's shot up in weight. You got a lot of kids around those weights. So we use him in this duel and we hold him out this duel, and he might be in this tournament and might not be. But in the end of it all, he can say, I wrestled in 4 state tournaments, and we won them all.
Yeah.
We won them all. That's a kid playing basketball. I know it's different with the height and the size, but you know, you pick a sport where you participated in and won 4 championships at any different level. So, you know, you start thinking about that this is a pretty special time for, you know, a kid like him. And even though he lost his match, in fact, he lost 2 matches this weekend, but he was up against, you know, arguably the best kid on both teams.
Sure.
Probably was the best kid on both teams. And he just happened to draw the straw and, but went out. He did not get pinned, fought through and saved points. So I think, of those things, and, you know, some of the other seniors as well, you know, obviously Peyton and Nikki, being guys that, were on the podium this year and had all the Lee boys. And so this is it.
There's one more coming.
Yeah,
there's one more.
But as I look at it, you know, that's a ways to go and things can happen and change. So, you never can, you know, predict where, you know, kids are going to end up and if they're even going to wrestle. So, I didn't think Trenton Van Schindel, I didn't know if I'd coach him, and I'm having the ball of my life. And here he is, you know, that was 12 years ago when he was probably 2 or 3, you know, not even in school yet.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jeremy would always say, you know, you'll be, and I'm like, well, you never know, you know, you don't know where life's going to go. And
for sure,
Trenton's going to even wrestle. Like you don't know. And so,
you don't.
You start thinking, you start going back to that, you know, Trenton ends up being, you know, somebody we talked about years ago, and now he ends up just going out and doing a job out there.
Yeah.
And
he did well.
You just start thinking back on those times, and it makes you feel real happy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm trying to draw some emotion out of you here a little bit. I mean, were there at least a tear?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. I mean, my parents were there. And so they're getting up in age, and told my mom I loved her and that she could be there. And
it's awesome.
You know, she got emotional, and my dad, and it's hard for them to get around, but I have great siblings, my sister and brother, and my brother brought up my high school buddy.
Yeah.
And they were there, and
that's cool.
We plan on going to the draft in Green Bay next month. So we talked about that, but just, a couple of my sisters. I mean, I got a big family and they're spread out all over, but,
that's pretty cool.
A lot of them are in the area too. So they're able to get down and had a good time, and they were talking about it all week. So, it was good. That gets you emotional for sure.
So now you got round hopefully 6 coming up, right? We have a fairly solid team. You got some young guys. We're obviously not graduating a lot. We're graduating. Was it 3 starters, like 3 solid starters, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have
5 total,
like
I think.
You've got guys you wish you had all your seniors back
For sure.
And, but Peyton got 3 matches, and Nikki, if you look at the guys that got 3, and Mason got 2 at the state tournament, so yeah, you're losing some guys there, but there's a few others that are right there on the bench ready to go.
Yeah, and plus with the growth in the off season, things like that too, guys will, you never know where they're going to wind up. But so we had Teague kind of chime in with a question. He said, Colin DeGroot, best goatee in the history of high school wrestling.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until they started bringing it up. Like I see big facial hairs all over the place. So they got one of the best ones. That's great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, you've been here long enough. I don't want to keep you too long because again, it's the off season and you got a lot of stuff going on. But we sat down, everybody. This has been Vision Quest podcast. Sat down with Coach Jeff Matczak, 9-time team state champ coach. It's been awesome. I get to talk to you a lot. Not everybody gets to talk to you. So I know you're going to be on with Teague and Steve at some point down the road here. But hopefully we were able to draw just a little bit more out of you than what those guys would.
Yeah,
so,
we kind of broke down some old duels. It was a good flashback to memory lane.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming in. So we're going to end it the way we always do. I just got to find the theme song here, and then we're going to end it that way. But we're out, man. It's been another great episode. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Talk to everybody soon.